Hi out there, and welcome to our New Hampshire Cross Country podcast. I am Amy Bernard, coach of the Pinkerton girls team, and I'm joined by a couple of our usuals who is with me.
Hi, Ian French, and I coach cross country at Londonderry. Though our season's done, so now I'm a Pinkerton indoor track coach.
Right?
That's where I am now in my season.
All right, well, welcome back to Pinkerton.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. And who else is joining us? Oh. Oh, awesome. And so again, if you're joining us for the first time, we just like to talk about New Hampshire cross country and all things.
It's great.
It is so
fun.
Like
kind of running in general even.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it kind of goes off in tangents from you. So if you see us out at meets, come and talk to us and tell us what you think. And, if there's something else you'd like to hear or give us some feedback, we'd love that.
We're so friendly.
Yeah, we are.
We're not scary. I promise.
My size is a little intimidating, but other than that.
That's what I saw the first time I met you. I was like, ooh, she's terrifyingly large.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not like /S, I believe is the internet thing.
Yeah. So anyhow, so we were going to start. Well, first I should say you can find us on Spotify and on YouTube. So give us a like and
right.
Yeah, love it. And so we want to start by giving a shout out to our Hoka Athletes of the Week this week for their performances at Meet of Champions.
For crushing it on Saturday.
Yeah, wow. So Haley why can I not? No,
Kavanaugh,
that's
right?
not even hard.
Yeah, that's
who broke 18. I think it was like a 17:56.
Yeah.
Wowzers from Oyster River.
And that was a 1,100 meter race.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
It was exciting to watch.
Sure was, leading her team to champions victory, going 2-3. That was outstanding. On the boys' side,
Peter? Hey, I got nothing. I should have.
Petre?
Ooh, all those are great. Jake, make sure you find us and correct us so that, because for junior, this is not going to be your last time, I think, as an athlete of the week here. So make sure you come and correct us.
Yeah.
Please.
And he's from Sanborn.
Yeah. 15:27.99. I love the 0.99.
Yeah, finishing 5th overall.
That's
awesome.
Again, especially as a junior, like he's to do this again.
Yeah. Wow.
Coming back.
Yeah. So shout out to those guys. So fantastic. And so we're going to start by doing like a little recap of Meet of Champs last week. I mean,
there's so many exciting topics today. We got Meet of Champions, New England's.
Yeah.
There's
everything.
Other categories.
Yeah. So good. So with me, and I don't know about you, but it was a little bit of feedback for the weather that we had the week previous at D1s where.
Yay, the literal opposite. The spectrum from like weirdly hot to like perfect.
It was so perfect. And I think times reflected that for sure. So, I mean, in the girls' race, we had 19 girls under 19 minutes.
Yeah. And on the boys' side, there were 20 under 60. Like that is hauling.
Yeah. So fast. We had 6 girls on the team run personal best.
Yeah. I think you had your top 5 were all under 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And you guys didn't win. Like that's the part we create. Like normally you'd be like, oh, I had 5 girls under 20 minutes. Like, oh, you must have won, right?
It was awesome.
We have some awesome teams right now. It's so fun to watch as like a spectator.
So cool. And like our number 4, she took off 8 seconds.
Man, that is
Kelly Marzoff.
Yeah.
8 seconds.
That's a huge PR.
Yeah.
So she went from like, if I remember, she was like barely 20, 1810 or
1910.
It's huge.
Wow. Right. And that's not alone. So I personally want to shout out Poulin because I think she might have had the day on the girl side. And
she ran an 18:11.
She ran an 18:11. She was 6th. So she was 18th in the meet merge from the previous week, and she finished 6th.
That's incredible.
Holy moly.
That's as big a jump as a person can have, I think.
Right? Wow.
I don't know, like, what did she not run well at D1? I don't know her individually well enough as a runner. Did she just not run well at D1? Or did she just run out of her mind to beat a champion? Or a little of both?
I would say maybe a little of both. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a track coach, so I'm not too familiar with her track times. I mean, obviously we know Alvern is flatter, which might yield itself to, those that are quicker. But maybe now, and we were all kind of like, ooh, I don't know about that, but she hung on. I mean, it was wild. So, I mean, like, to me, that was the race of the day individually.
Yeah, started it. I mean,
actually helps her team qualify for New England. I mean, we knew that they had a solid shot, so that's really cool. And then consider edging out Concord for the final spot. That's pretty exciting.
9 points. That's sweet.
Yeah, it's a close race there. Yeah. So, just fast times overall, 2 under 18. Really setting us up nicely for this weekend.
Yeah, so, I think the most impressive team thing is Oyster River going 2-3 at Meet a Champions.
Right,
man, that is a wagon right there.
In those times too.
Yeah, they were hauling. 1756 and 1801. Like, man, having 2 girls that are at 18 or slightly faster it's awesome.
Incredible.
At the same time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how about the boys' race?
It was also pretty exciting. We had Lucian Gleiser a few weeks ago was our athlete of the week, and he's been having a pretty good season. I thought he had
former podcaster. Shout out.
He had a 15:20 number 1. Awesome time.
Yeah.
But in the merge, he was not number 2, and he had an awesome day. If there was an interesting race, so at D1s, Giardina, Sturts, Redmond all went out together, and Redmond kind of fell off as the race went on, right? And we saw him completely flip his strategy. He went out much, not slow per se, but way slower. He did not try to run with the leaders early on, and he ran a race where his second half he moved up a ton, and he ended up almost catching Sullivan Sturts.
Wow.
He was only a second behind him. Sturts was a 15:22, Jacob was a 15:23, and it was I love somebody who can take what they've been given and realize, like, all right, I did this last week, it didn't work. What do I need to do differently? And then he tried some, and it did. It was a huge success for him. So he came out as the 4th best guy. And the previous week, I think he was 7th at D1.
Yeah,
so
he looked like he was struggling in the heat. Like, that just kind of like he stuck out to me watching him at D1s.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that, just like you said, maybe going out so aggressively on a course that's challenging
and
with the heat.
Day,
it just maybe that made him go a little more patiently.
Yeah, and it's a great. I don't meet many cross country runners. This is my 16th year coaching cross country. Most cross country runners go out too fast.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would. I actually would say we were doing a little race against JV versus the world last week.
Yes.
And you said to me as we started it, so we do this little race at Pinkerton, which is so fun. And you said, they always go so fast.
Yeah.
They do.
We got around the track. And I was like last.
I'm like anaerobic.
They're opening, we basically the first 300 meters of the course is on the track. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that I was in pretty much everybody was ahead of me.
Yeah.
But I passed like half the field by the time the race was over. Because I go out and I try to be nice and consistent, but I don't know. The track, I think in particular, really lends itself to starting too fast. But any really flat, open start, I think people get really excited and they feel like they need to be, I want to be 20th today, so I need to be 20th place 100 meters into the race. And it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And I think Redmond's race really proved that. He was back probably more like 15th, 20th early on, and then he progressively moved up. And then, one of the guys I know real well, Finn Christensen Craft, he's been a master of that all year. You find that kid at the mile mark, he's never close to where he's going to finish. His second and third mile, he's always passing people. And if there's anything I've learned in running over the many years of doing this, is that feels good to pass.
Yeah.
Feels bad to get past.
Yeah.
So
I'd agree with that.
I think most cross countryers need to go out a little easier and try to work the second half instead of redlining that opening mile.
I think Lucian did a really good job with that at Meet of Champions, because I think he did kind of a similar thing to Redmond, where at States, I think he kind of went out with the lead pack, up with Jamie, and then, didn't have a great race at States, and then Meet of Champions, he went out like kind of with the front of the secondary lead pack. And just kind of hung out there for a little bit, and then just had an awesome third mile, and ends up coming in second. So, he did.
And you mentioned Jamie went out like shoulder to shoulder with Giordina, right?
Right. Yeah.
And held back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say he ran poorly. You're in a 15:34.
Right.
Wish I could run a 15:34 in high school. But he certainly, by the end of the race, he wasn't.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously Giordina's just so great this year. Like it's tough to hang with him, and if you don't have like a perfect day, then it's gonna hurt trying to go out with him.
I mean, he's an incredibly talented. What's so hard with him is he's just a very consistent guy. You're not going to see 1 mile that he absolutely just demolishes, and then the other ones are a little soft. He's one of those guys who seems to run a nice, consistent, even race. And like, if you don't have that in you, which I think a lot of runners don't, it's the nature of we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? He's like a metronome. You can set the clock by him in essence. And I think if that's not your particular talent or your particular style, racing him must be really hard. The parts where you're struggling, he just seems to just be like do 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 do.
You can't really bank on him like coming back to you where you're like, oh, he went out like a little bit fast. I'll catch him like second, third mile. It's like, no, he's just cruising.
Very bad strategy.
Yeah. I think it is sort of about finding that balance though, between going out too hard and also not being warmed up enough and going out too slow. Because that's another piece too, is like you don't want to use your first mile of a race as a warm up either. So it's all in this time of year, particularly, outside of the divisionals in a weird temperature like day, it's cold.
Yeah, you gotta be ready to go.
Yeah, because I mean, as much as all of our high school athletes think that it's a long race, a 5K is not long, and you have to run hard. And so, I think it's kind of, you got to find that balance, and it's different for everybody.
A funny thing I've realized that with recent years, that people think that because we say warm up, they mean like that you should be sweating, and it's like, no. It's not about your skin temperature. It's about your muscles being warmed up. And so like, if you wore enough clothing and you jogged for 5 minutes, would you be sweating? Yes. But are your muscles warm up? No. It's not. It's about getting your muscles into an active state. And so like, you do need to go out for like 10 or 15 minutes. And I think for a lot of runners, you run your warm up probably, the first half of it can totally be pretty slow, but if you're not getting your pace up a little bit towards the end of it, you're not really getting your systems active and ready to go.
Right.
It's not just about sweating. It's about your cardiovascular system needs to be ready. Your lungs need to be ready to go full blast.
Yeah.
And so you have to get those like actually warmed up.
Right. And I think some kids are afraid they're going to make themselves tired.
Yeah,
and it's like,
it doesn't work that way, guys.
No, I mean, not with what
unless
we've
you're
done.
Finishing your warm up 30 seconds before the start of your race. You should have plenty of time between your warm up and the race there for it to have zero impact on your race quality. Yeah. Unless you're out there sprinting for 4 or 5 minutes.
Right.
If you ran like a sub 5 mile as part of your warm up, maybe you'd have some impact to that. But if you're doing that, I have a lot of questions about your decision making.
Seriously. Yeah. So I think that'll be a kind of interesting idea, or I think something to come back to now as we talk about New England.
Yeah, let's talk about New England.
So I first have to say, oh my gosh, shout out to former coach of CBU Vermont, Scott Bliss, who gave the most comprehensive preview on the girls' side I've ever seen. It's absolutely outstanding. We did some research and I was like, man, maybe we shouldn't have even put all that time and effort into it on our own.
You should just go read Scott's thing. If you're somebody who's really into, especially technical analysis of where teams are coming in. Some of you may not be familiar with this thing he's using. It's called speed ratings. They're really neat. They come from this coach who coaches in New York and Tully Runners. You can go to Tully Runners. I think it's tullyrunners.com is the website. And basically what he has set up, this dude is clearly a master of spreadsheets, is he has what he calls a speed rating, which is a combination of the course challenge level and the time that a person has run on the course. And it gives you this point value. And the better you run on it, the higher, contrary to most cross country things, the higher your speed rating is.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to have a high speed rating. That means you have run faster. And so he goes through and he uses these speed ratings to try to technically analyze who are the best teams coming into this. And again, it's awesome that it's able to consider not just the times that a person has run, but also
the course.
It considers things like average time that runners have run on that on that course in the past, sometimes over the course of decades.
Yeah, wow.
Not exaggerating. He takes into account decades of time information to try to make it so that these scores are as useful as possible.
Right. Wow.
In the end, it's still a made up number. Like, let's be clear. But
yeah,
it's, it provide another piece of data to sort of think about, and which is, it's fun.
That's so
it's
cool.
Fun if you want it to be.
It's like the SAT is of cross country.
Yeah, like a little bit. So if you go and you checked out that document, it's really, really neat. And so realize again, you want a high speed rating. High speed rating equals better. And some of the websites, like things like MileSplit, will sometimes include speed ratings as well when they talk about some of the national caliber runners. And on the boys, like you'll occasionally see guys with scores up into like 220s and 230s.
That's wild.
Those guys they're somebody who's running like 14s for courses and stuff like that. So, but
that's really cool. So you guys will see when you read the preview, some of the teams across New England's and the speed ratings, and so that first speed rating is the first person on the team, and so on and so forth. And we think that this is based off of last week's meets.
Not 100% sure, but
yeah,
it might also be their best speed rating for the season.
Right.
You figure it out.
So I promised Mr. Tim Cox that we would talk about this to my.
So we're going to New England.
Yeah.
Which team and coach was the winner of the last visit to Belfast, Maine on the girls' side?
Pinkerton Academy.
And who was their coach? Who was their head coach?
That was me.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you've won a New England championship. I think sometimes people don't realize just like what a big deal it is how hard it is to win. It's hard to go.
Yeah.
Number one. But to win is such a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
I'll pat your back for you, I promise.
I appreciate that. I was talking to Larry Martin about this last weekend.
I think he's got a couple.
Yeah.
I know he's got at least one, is they won my senior year.
Why do we not get him? Why do we not get him on this podcast? Seriously. We need to get him on this podcast.
He'll make us both look dumb and then we'll feel bad. Yes. He's so knowledgeable.
So he said something so insightful. And what he said was that it really takes more than 5 to win a New England championship, because somebody's probably not going to have their best day. And at New England, you need everybody to have their best day in order to pull that off. I mean, because it's like a quagmire, right? There's just so many bodies. There's and every single point, like it always counts, but there's in a span of 30 seconds, you can have 40 kids come in or more. And it's
especially you get past like those first probably 15 finishers. Those tend to be a little bit strung out.
Yeah.
But man, like 15 through like 70 is just people coming in clumps.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. So when he said that, I said, you know what? That is so insightful, because the year that we won New England's, the only year that I've won New England's, where I coached, we had our 5th girl that day was a freshman who really stepped it up big time, and one of the other runners struggled a little bit, and she moved up. If she hadn't had that performance, man, I mean, we wouldn't have won. We just wouldn't have. So it takes more than 5.
If I'm remembering correctly, it was really hard to tell that you guys won too. Like it was one of those races that it finished and you like your runners finished. You're like, I think we had a pretty good day. But if I went up and was like, did you guys win? Do you think you would have felt?
Oh, no. So I'll tell you. So I have the scores here. We had, 4 New Hampshire teams in the top 7 that day from on the girls side.
New Hampshire
Amazing.
in 2017.
Yeah, and we had 163 points. BG was second with 183 points. So 20 points, it's like nothing.
But so 163 in cross country, that's a lot of points. And so as you start getting those bigger numbers, so you have people who are probably finishing 60, 70th. And like, it feels like there were so many people in front of them. You can't help but look at it. And then the trick with New England is you have all the individuals too.
Right.
So your runner might be scoring 70 points, but they came in like 96.
Yeah.
And so you're watching them finish. Your fifth runner comes in 96 and you're like, oh,
yeah,
we didn't have it today. There's no way. We were way back.
The math is a little bit more complicated than like at states, maybe when you're like, okay, 1 + 5 + 7 plus like
crazy.
Yep.
We didn't have anybody nobody got all New England. We didn't have anyone in the top 25 that year. Which
is like an accomplishment in itself that you managed to do it without having one of the top
It
runners.
was just that they were so tight.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I remember watching, I brought that question up because I remember watching the race. I didn't think you guys won.
No.
If you had asked me, I'd have been like, oh no, they didn't. Definitely not.
Well, and this was before, any sort of live results, right? And I was actually out. I remember being told. So I was out.
I think I was
on the
around when you found out. You guys were like, what?
And somebody, I think the girls were cooling down and he came over to me. I think race to start and kind of in a position, and another coach from somewhere else, I don't even know, came over and was like, congratulations, coach, on the win. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like,
what win?
And he said, yeah, it's like posted over there. And I literally fell to the ground. I ran over to where it was posted. And then I sprinted into the gym, and my husband was there with my 2 kids. We brought the kids because we thought we had a chance at it. And I fell into his lap, hysterically crying. And all the parents were there, and they knew, right?
Yeah.
They knew because nothing tragic happened, right? So, but I just couldn't. It was so overwhelming. And to think we had to be. This is the part that I think is most incredible about this. Is that we had to beat BG, who is also from D1. So we had to beat BG at D1s to win the championship. We didn't beat them at Meet of Champions that year. And then actually, I think Sauhegan won. I think we came in second to Sauhegan, who finished 5th on the day this day. And then we had to beat them at New England. I mean, that's incredible. To win your divisional championship, you have to beat the second best team in New England. It was wild.
That's actually what happened my senior year as a runner. That's exactly what it was. It was Londonderry. They won D1s. They won Meet of Champions. They won New England's. We were second at D1s, second at Meet of Champions, second at New England's. It was can't lie, it was a little frustrating.
Yeah.
But it was a culmination of a really fun year, and I don't even think we realized how competitive we were until we got to New England's and proceeded to go 1-2, and it was like, oh. This is crazy. We were the top. We were battling the number 1 team in New England all year.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. And Co Brown was 7th that day, which, Sauhegan and Co Brown had put together some really amazing teams. They always do, for so many years in a row. And we had kind of gone back and forth. And my biggest takeaway from that day was kind of what you just said, is that we all made each other better. You know what I mean? And when we were interviewed after New England's, and they asked me, and I just said, shout out to the other New Hampshire teams, because we would not have this championship if it were not for them pushing us week after week after week. I mean, I feel like that was it right there.
It's a really cool day, but it is such a different experience to have these runners from all these other places. As much as Manchester's a pretty cool meet. We do get a lot of teams from out of the state. But if there's a challenge in New Hampshire, I feel like it's very insular sometimes. And we tend to, the New Hampshire teams tend to race the New Hampshire teams over and over and over again, maybe to a fault.
Right.
And it's such a fun meet because you do get to see these other teams and you get to see how the New Hampshire runners do. And you know what? We're a small state, and I love Connecticut's 4 times our size, population wise. it's amazing to me that there are these years where we show up and we beat all the teams from Connecticut and Rhode Island and Vermont and Maine. I wish Mass would come, but
I know, huh?
Want one.
But I will say, so on the girls' side, we know that CVU is like really dominant. I mean, they've been ranked in number 3 in the Northeast, I think, all season. They came to MI.
They're a program that frequently is nationally ranked.
Oh yeah.
It's not like once 10 years ago they had a national. No, man, like the frequency that they managed to, and it's this little school out in Vermont.
Yeah, I mean, incredible.
They've really got something there.
They're deep too, because when we saw them at MI, their JV team was outstanding as well. I mean, they're just really, really deep team. They won their Vermont state championship with 15 points, like perfect score.
I had even looked at that, and that's amazing. Imagine dual meeting the D1 to meet.
That's wild. That's wild. So, I mean, we know that's going to be really, really hard to overcome. And shout out to them because, I mean, absolutely outstanding. But I do think that in a lot of ways, this meet is going to be similar to the 2017 race at Belfast, because we do have some teams on the girls' side that are just really, really strong, because we know Oyster River, I think they should be regionally ranked as well, and I don't know why they're not.
I was just going to say, I'm really excited to see the Oyster River girls. Like they went 2-3 champions. Like that, I mean, to me, that means they're probably going to have at least 2 runners all New England, which if you're not familiar with that, means top 25 at New England.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I mean, that's a big helper as far as having a nice low score.
Right.
And again, there's such a tricky part to New England's that you're finishing, and maybe you finish at the same time as 5 other kids. And so you're struggling to beat all 5 of them, and you do.
Yeah. None
of them mathematically counted, and you have no idea.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's such a wild west of races, because you really don't know when you're passing somebody. Is this the one? Does this person even have a score attached to them, or are they an individual? Especially when you start getting into that top 25 area. And that's part of what happened my senior year. Was like, I think I was, if I remember correctly, I think I came in 43rd or something like that. Scoring wise, I was 16.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I was literally.
You have no idea
of what my place
no
was.
Idea. Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's wild. So, obviously they're going in the most dominant of New Hampshire teams, but nobody can overlook Hanover. And, I think that Pinkerton has a nice shot of being a strong team, placing up high too. So, I mean, I think that we're going to represent.
You have 3 girls who have, I would say, a shot at all New England.
Yeah.
I don't know if all 3 of them are doing it the same day, but.
Oh my gosh. Right.
It'd be pretty cool.
But they're going to
having one, like,
work as a team for sure.
It's such a huge accomplishment to be able to get to the New England's at all, but then do well enough that you leave with hardware of some kind is massive.
Right.
And so even if you just had one girl make it, I'd leave being like, today was a huge success.
Yeah. Well, I think that, the New Hampshire teams are really going to show up on the girls' side for sure.
Agree.
And I'm excited individually and then also team wise. I think it's going to be the strongest that we've seen on the girls' side in a while since back then,
Yeah.
So it's really cool. Really, really cool.
And realize New Hampshire teams, we're both, as much as like, they're from Pinkerton. No. We are New Hampshire fans.
Yeah.
That's what I always love going to New England, because it's this meet where I feel like I'm in a place where I can cheer literally everyone from the state of New Hampshire. I don't care what school you're from. I would love if my team went and won. I have never done that, but just seeing New Hampshire teams go and win is like, oh man, dude, it pumps me up to like want you to win. We're backing you.
Heck yeah. So awesome. And for all of our athletes out there, you might be lining up next to somebody that could be a future teammate if you're running college. So
that's also such a weird thing too, right? You never know. Once you get to pick where you're running, right?
How about on the boys' side?
Yeah, I mean, South has continued to very much be the team in essence, and I think as far as teams go, they have the best shot at winning. I don't know if they can. I mean, Bishop Hendrickin's always really good, and I'm realizing I didn't look to see if they made it. I'm pretty confident they did, because they're always awesome. There's some great teams from Vermont. They got a little bit. St. Johnsbury's been very good all year, but one of their runners, I don't know if he didn't race or if he just didn't finish. I don't officially know, but they were missing their top guy.
Oh boy.
So and they still did very well. And I can, just from the stuff over the year, I mean, they're an excellent team. So South absolutely has their work cut out for them, and Hanover's been awesome all year. Yeah. Co-Brown, Davio, they had a stretch where they were very much the team to beat too. You think we're gonna? Davio, why don't you weigh in here? How's Co-Brown looking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they kind of continued that stretch of kind of improvement, but just all the other teams in the state are really, really strong this year, and so obviously other people have improved as well. But yeah, I think they're like 5, 6, 7 has really caught up to the pack, and so that's going to help a lot at New England's, just because if they can get that pack time really close together, it just makes such a difference, because there's so many runners coming through really, really quickly. And so if you can just get that pack a little bit tighter, like that's like 50, 100 point swing right there with just so many bodies coming through.
Yeah.
It is like a relatively small time change for you. Like, let's say you PR and it's by 10 seconds. That could easily be 20 people at New England's.
Yeah.
And again, it's so different than most of the New Hampshire races we do, especially our playoff races, the D1s, the Meet of Champions. They're just, each week it gets a little bit denser and a little bit more competitive. And the jump, though, from Meet of Champions to New England's, to me, is sizable.
It's wild. Yeah. Do you remember? I'm going to go back to like just stating my age here, showing my age. But remember when it was no chips, right? And when you finished, there were chutes, and then they moved the chute over with rope. And so, to try to corral those people.
Oh, yeah.
And
then they come in so fast.
Yeah.
They would have 4 lines.
Oh, my
gosh. And there'd be a guy with a rope. And literally, as you were coming in, you might watch the guy with the rope jump into a different position, and you suddenly have to like run down a different chute.
And oh my gosh. And then they would give your athletes a card with their place on it in case something got screwed up.
I still have one of
so
mine.
That you could then collect them all and check your score.
Like Pokemon?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but yeah. So, I mean, just so many kids in a period of time. So let's talk about that for a second, like the course, right? And running at New England's, and what do we think of that course?
It's a pretty technical course, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not Dairyfield. It is a very different style of course than Dairyfield. If it's probably a lot closer to Alvern's course. It's not really anything like Nashua's. Lots of like little quick turns and little quick uphills and downhills on grass.
Yeah.
It's not fast. I wouldn't say it's a fast course. What do you think?
Not at New England's.
No. And especially again, if you're somebody who likes to get away with going out real slow and passing a ton of people, New England's ain't that course. I don't care where the New England's is being held. You're going to be in trouble because it's so dense with people,
right? Compared
to what you'll normally see.
Yeah. One of so our best Pinkerton performance at Dairyfield was by one of my former runners, Ariel Valancourt, and it was at the New England Championship. And I swear it was because she went out fast and just got pulled along, right? So like, I mean, man, she smashed her Dairyfield PR. I think it was like it's 18:27. Is the fastest time.
Great time.
It is, and she was a sophomore.
Yeah. So,
wowza.
When she saw the time, was it one of those things?
Oh yeah.
See the face. And
like, whoa.
I'm sorry. What did I run?
But I think it's like I said, because like you can get kind of pulled along, or you can get left behind. So again, it's kind of like that. You got to find that right balance, right? Because it is hard to pass.
As far as like meets go, if you're someone who's always sort of, I don't know, we'll call cheated the system a little bit and always been reliant on basing your race off of somebody else, I think New England's a tough race for that, because if you do, you're going to get swallowed up by just the sheer number of people. You got to be able to go out there and pull your pace a little bit. And especially if you're a rookie runner, I think it can be a really easy race to get overwhelmed with what's going on.
Of hard racing in a row that really mattered, like mentally, physically, all of it. It's a lot. Like, so, you got to kind of, like we said last, kind of block the other stuff out. It already happened.
As best you can, yeah.
And then just focus on, this race, right? And what you're step for step.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that it's one of our flatter New England courses for sure, but I
Yes.
do think that the number of people definitely,
like a bumpy course.
yeah, definitely.
Definitely like completely flat, but also no real
Yeah.
punishing.
I do feel like Cumberland. I don't know. It's just I thought it was like a quintessential kind of New England championship type course.
Yes.
But it's cool. And plus we get to drive for 3.5 hours into an area that doesn't even have town names anymore. It's like numbers. So I mean it's definitely
leave geography behind.
Yeah. Right? Like a different experience. Well, it's like a big road, which is fun.
Like
We've earned it.
The closest hotel is like half an hour away.
Yeah, literally. We are staying 30 minutes away.
You beggar.
Yeah. Camden. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you got to trust your training. And at this point, I feel like you're all expert technicians, right? Like you
Hopefully.
have
That's the point of the season,
really like trained yourself to be agile on the courses and quick when you need to be quick. And you got to kind of trust in that, right? Like you got to kind of, I don't know, feel your body, right? It's, I don't know, it's challenging.
And just don't get overwhelmed by the race. Again, especially if you're somebody who's used to being like 20th. Being 20th feels pretty good. You know, there's not a huge number of people in front of you.
Right.
And whether it was D1s or Meet of Champions, and you probably felt pretty good during a lot of the race. You're looking around, you're seeing those New Hampshire people you know. Maybe you beat somebody you didn't always beat. If you're a top 20 New Hampshire runner, and then you add on 5 other states,
it makes you 100th.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
So,
you know,
if you finished in like the top 60 of New England, that's actually probably a pretty good day for you.
Yeah.
But that feels different. Coming in 60th doesn't feel like it doesn't. You look around, it doesn't look as good. It doesn't feel as good. Don't let that get you down. You're still probably having a great race within the context of you as a runner. So don't let yourself get down just because it doesn't feel or look the same as normal. Because I think that was the thing I struggled with my junior year. I got punched in the mouth with that pretty good, where I felt like I was getting killed. And I wasn't. I was doing okay.
Yeah.
But if you had asked me, like, if you could have interviewed me 2 miles in and been like, this is going poorly. I'm getting smashed here. And I wasn't. It was just, that's just how it felt because of what I was used to as far as seeing all these New Hampshire runners. So don't get down on yourself if it doesn't look the same or feel exactly the same. Try to find the, mental positivity to like stay locked in and say, you know what, this might be going better than I think. And I need to try to stay focused and honed in and listen to your teammates and listen to your coaches that are hopefully going to be out there cheering you and trying to give you a clue of where you're at and if it's going the way it's supposed to.
Well, and to your point, again, we didn't have anyone in the top 25 of New England the year we won. And my first runner, she scored 13 points.
Yeah.
Just making sure that's not for me. Oh, it's not. Sorry, I am still at work here, folks. But so all those they were individuals. You don't know. All you can do is control your race, right? Like all you can do. So
try to beat as many people as you can. That sprint at the end, if you can shut your brain off on this day and you can just catch 1 or 2 people, they might be the one.
Right.
You never know.
Right. So best of luck to all of our, to everybody racing this weekend. It's going to be a really good one. I think we're going to have great weather. It's going to be awesome. But
I won't be there physically, but I'll be cheering you on in spirit from my house.
Well, I mean, it is 3.5 hours away.
It is. So I won't be that trip. But Cody will be cheering for all of you New Hampshire runners.
I will.
She wants her team to win, but she'll still cheer for you.
Yeah, I want my team to do as well as they can do, for sure. But yeah, I am definitely rooting for our New Hampshire runners. So I'm going to say extra best luck to all of our New Hampshire runners, for
absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, the thing is, most of the runners in the state they're done.
Right.
Their team is done. They're done individually. So where do they go from here? What do you do now?
Yeah. So it's us. So like, how do we learn from the season, recover from the season, and then move forward, right? Grow right?
Before our next season, whether it's another year of high school. Some people are going to go on and run in college. Some people, running is now just going to be a thing they do for fun.
Right.
Or maybe they go out and do road races and stuff. But
right.
in any of those scenarios, if running's still part of your future, hopefully your goal is to get faster, right?
Yeah.
So what are the steps? If we were looking to the future and this was New England's and there was a podcast being made next year before New England's, you want your name to be in the podcast, right?
Right.
So what do you do between today and then to get into the New Hampshire podcast?
Right. So
you want to be on Crosstalks.
I would say first and foremost is a little bit of recovery anyways. Everybody should take a few weeks off.
A minimum of a week.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
No running.
Got to.
No.
Got to recover.
Just take it easy. Get back to it a little bit.
Right. And then, for everyone who does track is really great at kind of changing the muscles you're using, right?
For sure.
And, kind of focusing on something a little bit different for a little while.
I think they're real, to me, when I think about running from the context of not just an individual season, but from the year standpoint, I think you have approximately 6 months of distance long stuff. And then you have 6 months of faster, quicker stuff. And both of those sets of things are important,
Yeah,
and there are some people who all they do is cross country, and that's great. And you might think well, I don't ever need to work on my speed then. No, that is,
those people just don't progress.
Right.
Is what happens. You just get them as a coach, we can get them back to where they were the last season, but we just don't see the progression because I think that cross country, so in running in general is you're going to be better at it if you practice it. I mean, it's like anything, right? But I look at it like math too, right? Like people that tell me, oh, I'm just not good at math. I don't want to hear that, as a former chemistry teacher, you got to practice. That's what it is. It's everything's best practice. And that's what I love about our sport because you don't necessarily have to be naturally talented. But if you put your head down and you work at it, you take the proper recovery, but you do work at it, you're going to see so much growth and progression over time.
I think the hardest thing for a high school runner is because from a psychology standpoint, one thing your brain doesn't do well when you're 15 is think long term.
Yeah.
Getting you to show up tomorrow for practice is not hard, but getting you to think about how does the next 365 days shape me? And that I need to do some different things if I genuinely want to be faster. If I don't want to be the same runner in 365 days, I don't want, I was 50th this year. Great. Some seniors are going to disappear. So I'll just by definition knock down to 35. Is that good enough for you? Because I hope it's not.
No.
Mentally, you should be playing this game of how do I go from being the 35th returner? How do I end up being the 25th person next year? And then the year after that, can I get down to 15th or 10th?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that everybody can get down to number one, but can you beat a couple of people by having this long-term approach to running that you might not have beat if you were thinking about things in a really short-term way?
Right. And I think too, it is about practice. It's about longevity. And sometimes it's also about changing it up too, right? Because, what do they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I can say that about my own personal career. I thought at one point that I was never going to break 1930. I think I ran 1932 12 times in a row. And it wasn't until
that sounds maddening.
Yeah. I mean, not that that's bad. Don't misunderstand me. But I just that was what I said. I said, this is what I got. This is me. This is all it's going to be. And it wasn't until I changed things a little bit. I looked at my training. I looked at my diet. I looked at the whole picture and I changed some things that I ran faster than I ever thought that I could, because I was doing the same thing over and over again. It wasn't bad, but
I think for most high school runners, there probably is a bigger picture that they don't often see.
Yeah.
Again, showing up for an individual practice and going on a 5-mile run and doing some strides afterwards is that's the easy part.
Right.
It's all of the surrounding components that led up to that 5-mile run and then the things that go afterwards. So, I think the first thing that you probably want to do is if you're trying to think about how I'm going to get better next year, start with some goal setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be when high school, especially if you're a freshman or a sophomore, where do you want to be at the end of your senior year? Well, I think you want to be at New England's, whether your team you can't control where your team ends up, but you can absolutely control where you end up. And you have a chance, like, again, especially for a freshman or sophomore, totally think about like, I want to make it to New England's one way or another. And then, again, have some goals that, have some short-term goals and have some long-term goals.
Right.
Both are important, and they create motivation for us to really just to do the things that we don't like to do.
And what I liked, we set goals at the beginning of every season. We meet with each runner, and what I like them to do is they set these goals, right? And I want them to be very specific about the goals. But then also, I want to know how they're going to achieve these goals. So if you're telling me that you want to break 20 minutes in a 5K, right? Then I want you to tell me what is your weakest part of your race. And then how can we specifically target that and make that stronger? So if you're somebody who runs always, your second mile is always slower, right? Like you're just like, that's like where you kind of dip, you go out hard and then you can finish strong, but that second mile, you kind of lose it. Then what are we going to do? We're going to take the workouts, right? And you're going to mentally focus on the middle part of that workout. And you're going to say, I'm going to dial right into this, right? Like, and this is what I'm going to do, because things always play out at practice before they do in races. And so we do that a lot. Like you want to say, oh, well, I want to, run well at Dairyfield. Well, what is Dairyfield? Up and downhill. Let's talk about how are you as an uphill or downhill runner. I know in college, I wanted to work on my kick because I would always get out kicked. I still get out kicked, folks. I get out kicked. But I said, I'm going to work on my kick.
But is it less?
No, not at this moment. But I took like every time that coach threw in the short stuff at the end of workouts. And I said, I'm not going to accept being passed by the majority of my team when I'm, fifth girl on this squad right now. I'm not going to accept that just because this is my weakest point. I'm going to push this the most, and I think it makes a difference.
If you let somebody beat you in practice the same way every single time, guess what's going to happen when you race? You've created that.
Right.
Like if it's that you don't have good closing speed, well, you can't just go, I just can't beat it at the end.
Right.
No, like actively engage in trying to change that.
I mean,
the human body is an incredible machine. It is a changeable machine.
Sure is.
If you dedicate yourself to doing that.
Right. I mean, if you tell me that your goal is to be varsity on the team, right? But then you don't do anything to make action to have that be like achievable, then how, like, that's all well and good, but like that you're not going to get there.
Let's say I had somebody who was slated to come back next year as like my 10th runner, and they said to me like, that's not good enough. And so what are the steps that I'm going to take between here and then to go from 10th to hopefully 7th or better, right? And so there's a lot of different things they're going to need to do. And it starts with, there's an easy path, and that's indoor and outdoor track, I think is an
you got to commit to running.
You do.
Pretty much year round. I mean, obviously with some breaks, but.
Yes, you do need to take breaks. It's really important to have breaks. You do not need to run 365 days.
Agreed.
That actually won't make you faster.
Yeah.
You'll probably actually get slower.
Right.
Because you're going to wear your body down.
Well, and then there's people who do swimming, and I don't want to take away from like some really awesome different sports.
Wrestling,
but like,
and there's kids who play lacrosse in the spring, and like we're not saying don't do those other things, guys. But what we are saying is that like you do need to be conscientious about, if you're trying to grow, you have to put effort into that. And as much as some of these other sports are great, you still probably want to do some running, or at least try to get out and do some sprinting, or maybe it's about you're going to spend a lot of time doing weight room type things, or you're going to get a set of bands and you're going to try to do some things to try to improve your core strength so that maybe your form's a little better next year. There's a lot of different paths that can take you to better.
Right.
It's not as simple as just being like, I have to run 35 miles every single week for the next year. No, not necessarily. Again, if I'm doing wrestling this winter, great. Okay, so do wrestling. Can you get out and do 10 or 15 miles in a week in addition to that? Because at least then you're kind of doing something to move forward. And are you doing things to strengthen your core? That's going to help you wrestle.
Sure
it's not just that, the things that we learn to do, the things that make you good at running often make us better at other things too.
Well, and if you're somebody that gets plagued by the same type of injuries over and over and over again, right? Like, what are you doing to stop that from happening, right? Because it's not, if you have a weakness in an area, I'm going to go hamstrings, because we all know that runners have weak hamstrings. Then what are you doing to fix that problem? Because if you have to spend a month recovering from injury, then that also isn't making you better. So, and it's not about just rehabbing it in the moment and then forgetting about it and moving on. Like, you got to stay on top of it. Unfortunately, it's just part of the whole thing. Like,
so we got to strengthen our weaknesses. And so something, maybe if you think that your hamstrings are an issue, so great. So what steps are you taking to make those things better? And it doesn't necessarily have to mean going to the weight room. I think sometimes people automatically, okay, so it's weak, so I have to go to the weight room.
Right.
Well, okay. Yes, that is a path, but like, maybe you don't have access to a weight room. Maybe your school's weight room is small, or it's hard, or hard to get into. What about during the summer? Do I have to pay for a gym? No, man. Like, even if you're there are tons of body work exercises that you can do. We live in the age of Instagram. And there are so many great physical therapy people online that will give you like specific exercises that if your goal is, hey, I feel like my lower back is weak, or I feel like my hamstrings are weak, I feel like my hips are weak. Find there are these sources of people who will give you body weight exercises you can do that can change your situation. As someone who's just coming off of an injury, I spent a month in a boot. It was miserable, but I ended up in physical therapy, and the physical therapist, one of the things she commented on was that my hips were kind of weak, and it was not helping me. And so I've had to, even at 41, I've had to dedicate myself to strengthening my hips. I went out, I got some exercise bands. I do a band work routine pretty much every day now. And I've noticed a difference. Did it happen over a week or 2 weeks? Nah, man, I've been doing it now for like a full 2 months. And I really just in the past week have started to be like, hey, this feels a little bit different in a good way.
Yeah, that's so good.
I feel like I'm having a little more success not letting my hips droop behind me, which is a big problem for posterior or anterior pelvic tilt.
Oh, you sound so fancy.
Look it up, anterior pelvic tilt. A huge problem for runners, though, that your hips are rolled back a little bit. And as a result, we lean forward a little bit too much. And it hurts our form. And as a result, it causes certain injuries to come up more often. And so that was a goal for me, was to try to fix that. And again, this is 2 months that it took me to start feeling a difference. That was where I started to note. And it's hard, guys.
It is hard. It's frustrating.
If you've never done band work routines, they don't feel good.
No.
They burn, man.
It is hard.
They're hard. And so, but I knew if I wanted to get better and not just keep getting re-injured, that was what I was going to have to do.
Yeah.
And it's a mentality, guys. It's not I'm not necessarily saying you need to strengthen your hips and you need to do band work routines. They're great. Don't get me wrong. I'd love it if all of my guys did band work routines. But it's about having this mindset of there are things I need to improve, and I'm going to invest some of my energy every day into improving those things.
And isn't that the greatest metaphor for life, really? Right?
Yeah, as it turns out, that applies to everything that you do in life.
That's why I love running so much, right? Because you get out of it what you put into it. And I think it teaches you so much about yourself, and you become so much stronger as a result.
Yeah, and it really, the older I get, the more and more I realize that running is a metaphor for everything that you're gonna do in life, whether it's getting a certain job, some of you are going to college, succeeding at college, succeeding at jobs, but also succeeding in things like I'm trying to raise a family, got these 2 kids. I really want to be a great dad. I want my kids to grow up and be like, man, my dad was awesome for me. And it applies to that too, because is raising kids easy? Nope. Sometimes it's hard.
Yep. So, I don't know about you, but I love New Hampshire cross country.
I love New Hampshire's cross country so much. And again, guys, this weekend, those of you who are, and it's a privilege, who are enjoying the privilege of going to New England's, live up every second of it, number one, but make New Hampshire proud. And because I will be cheering for you so hard.
Yes.
So hard.
And if you are not, go to the New Hampshire Cross Country website, powered by Runners Alley, and check out the results and the video. And for our coaches, upload photos, because, we're going to have.
Poor Coach Cox is going to be getting texts from me all Saturday.
Yeah.
When's the video going up? Can I have the video now? I want to see the video. Can we put the video up?
Yeah. So check that out, and be thinking of all of us. But, best of luck to our New Hampshire runners. It's going to be exciting.
Crush those other New England states. They're all the worst and we're the best.
Well, we'll see you guys next week, hopefully.
Yeah.